What's up guys, this is Barry doing a showdown video today. We are not on stream, so if you're watching this is a recording, we're not live or anything like that, so don't try and chat to me or anything. We didn't have time to do a stream, so we're just going to do this as a recording. But this video is really just to talk about the new showdown update. So we had a balance patch, like a balance update, and we got some new cards, we got some updates to cards, some new things with the meta. A lot of stuff has changed, and we're going to talk through all of that here right now. So first things first, we got 3 new cards. I'm just going to run through those 3 new cards and then really just talk about my thoughts on those cards. So the first card we got, Split Vision. So this is a protector card, and it works that if you have a pair, you draw 2 action cards. So this is good if you use something like Fantasyland, Pocket Mirror, or if you just happen to have a pair, anything like that, you're going to draw 2 more cards. So it's a draw engine. Essentially, it can be pretty useful for protector where you need to get more cards, something like that. And this is a pre-flop card, so you have to use this pre-flop. So you've got to use this on, you know, if you've set yourself up, if you've used promote or something like that to get, you know, you've ended up with a pair. You use this, 2 more action cards can come in handy. Another card that we got is Atomic Shift. So this is an inventor card. It gives +1 rank to your lower card and then repeat anytime you play an action card. And this works to infinity. So basically, you play this card and it will +1 rank whatever your lower card is. Whatever your lower card is going to go 1 higher. And then every time after that, you play an action card. So if you keep playing action cards, you're going to get +1 rank to your lower card. So if you start with something like Queen Jack or Queen Queen and then you play a few action cards, you end up with aces a lot of the time. And this is going to be pretty powerful for, you know, starting off with good hands and just getting up to 2 aces. And it's going to block a lot of things that your opponents are going to do. It's going to be really frustrating to play against, because if you've got action cards to burn through, and you know, if you've got something that's maybe giving you more action cards, you can sort of play that to your advantage and you end up with a couple of aces, and it's, you know, it's going to be pretty handy in a lot of decks, a lot of situations. That's going to be good. Final card that we got is this one. So this is a Rebel card, and it means that your opponent will discard all universal action cards. So there's some decks that play a lot of universal action cards, things like Inventor, and this is a Rebel card. It's a flop card, so it's got to be played on the flop, and this will basically just get rid of all those, you know, those frustrating universal cards that people have, things like Brick or Compression or Court Order. There's a whole bunch of stuff that, you know, people play that this is going to frustrate, and this maybe brings a little bit of life back into the Rebel deck, which, you know, sort of fell out of favor a little bit. So that's all the new cards, and now I also want to talk a little bit about all the changes. There's been about 14 or so changes to existing cards, and there's been a few things that have really kind of shaken the meta up, which I think we can go through all of them and just look at what's happened, like what's new in terms of these existing cards, things that we already have. So just going to run through them. Inventor has got quite a few things that have happened to it, basically. So first thing first, we lost Reshape. So Reshape was the card that would +1 rank to the lower card, -1 rank to the top card on the flop, and then it would generate, if you used it as a repeat, it would generate as a combo card. It would generate another card. It was a universal card. And this was, in my opinion, I thought this was a pretty good card. I was surprised to see it removed, but they did remove it. They replaced it with you know, some other sort of changes, some new things that have sort of shaken up Inventor a little bit. But yeah, I liked Reshape, but I assume that it was not that well played and not that useful. But I mean I found it pretty useful in a lot of situations where you need to get like maybe a -1 or a +1 to give yourself a better hand, or to just generate another card. So it was a shame. I was a little bit disappointed to lose that card, but like we do have a whole bunch of other stuff going on with Inventor, which I'll talk about. So let's select Inventor. We can see right here, so this is the first one. So chain reaction, right? So this card here. So chain reaction is you get 3 random pre-flop cards, and this has changed. That this used to have a like a 10 chip penalty, so that you would give your opponent 10 chips every time you use this card, and then it gives you 3 random pre-flop cards. It's a difficult card to use. Like it does give you 3 cards, but giving 10 chips to your opponent was a reason why I didn't use this card. Like it's just not worth sacrificing that many chips. They've removed that penalty now, so now it just gives you 3 random pre-flop cards. So can be super powerful. Like you can get 3 random pre-flop cards, can be anything, could be things like Promote, Fantasyland, any of the other good stuff, and then that can really sort of get you into good spot if you're sort of running low on cards. Other changes, there's been a change to Fading Echo. So this card here, Fading Echo, it now replaces, it replaces your lower pocket card with a copy of the other, and gives it -1 rank. Like whereas before, you used to have to choose which card you wanted to discard. So if you had, say, an ace, or you had like a 10, you would choose whether you wanted to discard the 10 or discard the ace. But that did lead to a lot of confusion. Like a lot of people would discard the wrong card, the card they didn't want to get rid of, and sort of end up with something that they didn't expect. So they've got rid of that, and so you're forced now to keep your higher card, and then you get -1 of whatever the lower card. So if you've got like an ace and you use this, it will give you ace king, and it's basically a copy. So you're going to have the same suits. It's going to be whatever suited. So you're going to play this. Like people used to play this, and they used to sort of try and be a bit tricky by using lower cards, but now you have to use the higher card. So it does change the dynamic a little bit, and it's also gone to a +7. So it's a big card in terms of the number of chips it puts into the pot, which you sort of have to think about. Like if you want to play huge pots, we're using something pre-flop where you're going to give quite a bit of information out to your opponent. The other big change is low blow. So this card here, low blow. So this has gone to a universal card. This used to be a river card, but now it's universal. So you can use this on the flop, which I think makes it very useful, makes it much more powerful than it was before. And I think that's interesting in any kind of deck. You can use this to basically kind of reset the board, get rid of, like you have to reveal one of your cards, and then you can sort of reset if people are sort of getting into position on the flop. You can reset, you can cycle all the board cards higher than whatever the card is you reveal. So a few little changes to the Inventor class. Nothing too crazy there, but some stuff like chain reaction going to no penalty is good, and low blow going to universal is pretty significant. Next, let's talk about Protector, because Protector has a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff happening with Protector. So firstly, we got rid of Blessing. Blessing was the card that used to give you a lock on any face card. So you used it pre-flop, and it would lock any face card that would come, and then it's just kind of locked on the flop, or anytime a face card would come into the board, it would be locked. They've got rid of that, I think, because it wasn't super useful. Like it was fairly useful sometimes, but it's not really anything. A lot of stuff is out of your control with it. Like if say you use Fantasyland or something like that, and you want to sort of lock, maybe use Hot Deck, and then you sort of want to lock any face cards that come onto the board. But other than that, it's only sort of, it's kind of situational. And you sort of sometimes end up with just like a whole bunch of locked cards on the board, and then it's maybe not super great. But like we did have a few other changes. So as well as losing that, we've also got Hot Deck has itself changed. So we can take a look at that. So let's go and have a look. So Hot Deck now shuffles 20 random face cards. Like before, it used to shuffle 4 of each. So it used to shuffle 4 jacks, 4 queens, 4 kings into the deck, and now they've changed it so that now it's 20 random face cards. So I think that probably makes it a little bit more powerful. You're getting more face cards there. So if you have face cards and you need to generate more, like this will help. It will make the deck kind of top heavy towards those face cards. So that's pretty useful. Another thing that we've had change is Savor the Moment. Savor the Moment was not a great card. It was a river card. It's also a +8, so it gives a huge amount of chips into the pot, but it locks a board card. And now it's become a universal card, which changes things a little bit. So you can use this on the flop, which before we would have to wait into the river and then you use it, and you know, it's a lot of the time it just sort of comes into sort of play too late. But now being able to use it on the flop, that changes things a lot, because it means you can sort of lock things down a little bit. If you've got a card on the flop that you like, you can lock it down. That is powerful. I've already had some good success with that. The other thing that changed is pocket mirror. So similar to how with the fading echo, that it would replace the, you know, it would get rid of your lower card. This does the same. So it replaces the lower card and you get a copy of the other. So that means if you've got, say, ace 6 and you use this, you'll get 2 aces. Now, this does change the dynamic of it a little bit, because people would sometimes use this on lower cards, and it's when you can get tricky with it. Like, if everyone kind of expects you to use it on high cards, but people would sometimes use it on lower cards, especially using it something like 2s. If you use it on 2s and you combo it with wild ducks, it's really powerful, and it's unexpected a lot of the time. Lower pairs with pocket mirror are unexpected and kind of throws your opponent off. Now that's been removed because I think too many people were using it incorrectly, hitting on the wrong card and replacing the card they didn't want to hit, and it was difficult for beginners. So that's been changed. I think that might get, at some point that might get reverted. Like they might sort of change the UI or something like that to make it a little bit just easier to select which card. But for now, like, this is going to be replacing your lower pocket card with a copy of the other, so it basically means you get 2 of the higher card, which is pretty significant. The other thing that changed with Protector is Trap. You can just take a look at that. So this now, points change from 4 to 0, so now it doesn't give extra sort of chips into the pot, which does help for a flop card. It means that pots don't get too big. And it also means that no show change as well. So if you use this and your opponent doesn't show, you get 6 chips, whereas before it used to be 3. And if you win showdown, your opponent discards all action cards. Now, this is not a particularly, it's not a card I play against a lot. It's not a card I play a lot, but I can see this maybe being useful. It's kind of a threat that, you know, you want to go to the river, and then if you do win, opponent discards all action cards, and because it costs 0, maybe it's worth just kind of throwing in there. Like, it does take up the space of a card, but, you know, because it doesn't cost anything, can be just worth throwing in there for, you know, the sort of backup of no show, you're going to get 6, and then win showdown, opponent discards all their cards, which is, you know, equally, you know, pretty good scenario. So that is Protector. We also had a little bit of a change with some of the Bureaucrat cards. So this is pretty significant, actually. I think this is going to make Bureaucrat a lot more played than it was before, for a couple of reasons. So the first thing that changed is this card, Thought Police. So Thought Police, this used to make a copy of a card in your opponent's deck. So it would make a copy of whatever card they have in their deck, and it would, you know, of any random card, and it would give you a copy of that card. So any action card that your opponent has that they have in their deck that they haven't used yet, that they haven't seen, is going to give you a copy of it. Now it steals a card. So this is another sort of addition to the steal mechanic of Bureaucrat, where a lot of the time you're trying to steal cards, wear down their cards, steal action cards, and we already have Debt Collector for that, which is great. You're stealing action cards, and then this changes things a little bit, where, you know, you're also stealing cards. It is a rare card, so you only get 1 of these, but that can be super great. Like, I've already had, you know, some success using this, because you steal a card basically, so it means that they're losing cards. That can be really frustrating to play against. Another thing that changed in Bureaucrat is House Cut. So House Cut has changed. The points have gone from 0 to 4. So I think this is maybe to stop people dumping it, like, because if I have this, a lot of the time, you know, I might sort of, if I need to get rid of it, it's a card that I can get rid of, and then I can kind of stall for a bit, and it doesn't cost me anything, because it used to cost 0, but now it costs 4. That changes things a little bit. Like, this card is not always super useful. I think maybe it still needs something to buff it, because it very rarely comes into play. Like, it's very rare that you will be in a situation where your opponent uses all their action cards and you still have this. Like it happens to me maybe, you know, 1 in every sort of 50 games or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't know exactly, but it's very rare. I can't even remember the last time that I've actually used it. And I run this card. I keep this card just for those situations where sometimes it comes in handy, because when it does, it can win a game, but it's kind of rare. The other card that changed is Wealth Tax. So Wealth Tax has changed that now it also draws a card instead of stealing 5 chips. So before, like, you used to use this when, you know, say your opponent was on 25 chips, you'd use it, and then you'd, you know, if your opponent has 5 action cards, you'll steal 1, and then you also get 5 chips. But then the card is kind of dead, so you can't use 2 of them, because this is not a rare card, this is a common card. You can use 2 of them, but now it does something a little bit different. So if you are behind and you have, you know, your opponent has 5 cards and you use this, you will steal, great, an action card. But if you are behind, so 25 behind, that's where tax kicks in, you will also draw an action card. And if you do it twice, if you use 2, then you're going to draw 2 action cards without the sort of stealing their chips, without the chips going down. I don't know how I feel like this, because I did like this for being able to steal chips, especially if you go quite a lot down. If you're sort of down 30, 40 points, you use a couple of these, you know, gives you sort of 5, then 10 chips. And it's quite rare that you will end up in a situation where you have 2 of these in your hand, but in those situations where you do, like, this can be good to, you know, as a kind of draw engine, maybe if you're behind and you need to draw more action cards. So that's pretty interesting. Another thing that changed is this. A dry board is now a +7, which makes it much more expensive to use. And I think maybe that means that they want sort of people to use this more purposefully, because a lot of the time this sort of comes into play. You have it in your hand if you're using it, and, you know, it's not super useful. You get to the river and you just kind of need to junk it, because, like, maybe it's not helping you. But now it becomes too expensive to just kind of use it without purpose if you don't think it's going to actually help. And, you know, because it's +7, that's a huge amount of chips that you're putting into the pot. So that changes things quite significantly. So, you know, whether you want to use this or not, you know, you have to think about that +7. So giving a +7 to a pot is huge. So that is everything that changes in Bureaucrat. Next, let's have a look at Gambler. So Gambler only has 1 change, and it's to a pre-flop card. It's to Maniac. So Maniac is a common card. You can use 2 of these, but it's changed that now it puts 20 into the pot. Before it used to backfire. Backfire is like if something that it means there's a 50-50 chance of it happening. So when you use this, there used to be a 50-50 chance of taking 10 chips out of the pot. So it would give you +10 and -10. Basically, it just gives you +10. Now, the Maniac card is going to give you +20 anytime. I mean, guaranteed. It's giving you sort of +20 into the pot. Use it pre-flop. But then the backfire it means there's a 50-50 chance of revealing a pocket card. Now, this card, I don't like this card. I don't like playing it. I also don't like playing against it. So that kind of tells you a little bit about this card, because it means that pots get huge. Like, it means that pots get huge before you've even got to the river. Like, this is a +20, so the pot is going to be at least 30. You go to the river, it's at least 60. And, you know, that can mean sometimes that the game is done in like a single hand or maybe 2 hands if you get to this. And, you know, it's making pots huge. There's a backfire now where it's going to reveal a pocket card. I think it does have its uses. I know that people are still playing this, people are running it, and they have success with it because it puts your opponent in a position where, you know, if they go to the river, they need to have it. They need to be good, and if they don't have it, it forces them to fold, because nobody wants to play a huge pot if they think they're going to get to the river and they can't win. So it's a tricky card to play. Sometimes it's kind of borderline whether it's going to help you or it's going to sort of help your opponent, but it does have its uses. And, you know, I think that, you know, there's going to be some people that will, you know, continue to play that. That is almost everything. We just have a couple more things to talk about with Rebel. So we mentioned already that Rebel got a new card. It got a card called Hostile Territory. It's a flop card, whereas there it is. So Hostile Territory, it gives your opponent, makes them discard all their universal action cards. That can come in handy. The other thing that Rebel got is it got a little bit of a change to Revolution. So now this is interesting because Revolution was a tricky one to play. It's now a universal card. So here it is. This is Revolution. It's common card, so you can run 2 of these. And Revolution is a card that will brick any kings or queens. And in the past, this was a river card, still a +6, but this was a river card, so you would use it on the river when you get there. And then, sometimes, it's going to be great. You can, kind of, just completely kill your opponent. But then a lot of the time, it just ends up kind of not being useful. It just becomes kind of redundant, and it's a +6, so it's annoying to get rid of. And it also discards a random action card, so it got kind of annoying to use. Like you would use it against something like Fantasyland. If your opponent has queens, you use this, you brick both their queens, great. But if they don't have queens, or you don't know what they have, then it's a little bit more tricky. Making it universal is a big deal, because a lot of the time, you will see your opponent, maybe they set themselves up with Fantasyland, or they set themselves up with, Atomic Shift or Pocket Mirror or something like that. You use this, you can brick earlier on in the hand their cards, and when you're bricking their cards early, that can put you in a pretty commanding position. So, it's good to really sort of counter a lot of the play and to be able to counter it earlier. So I like this. I like that change. I think maybe it brings Rebel back into play a little bit. We might see some more Rebel decks. Maybe Rebel Cheetah comes back into fashion. Rebel Inventor is definitely still usable, and I do see people using that. So that's pretty significant. So I do like that as a change, and making that universal. Other changes, not a huge amount. So we did also have Rebel losing the value bet card. Value bet would sort of put extra chips in the pot. Not a particularly useful card. I didn't really like that too much. And that's gone, along with Inventor losing Reshape, Protector losing Blessing. The final thing to mention is that nothing has changed for Cheetah. Now, I thought this was interesting, because I thought that maybe Cheetah would get nerfed a little bit, because Cheetah is very powerful. But then sort of thinking about it a bit more, there's not really anything you could really nerf. Like, Cheetah doesn't have that many OP cards. Like, it's got river cards like Cheat, great, but they're rare cards anyway. And then Rude Exchange, I think maybe giving Rude Exchange a positive impact on the chip, like a plus, would make it sort of more expensive to use. Like at the moment it's a 0, so you can use it without sort of affecting the pot. Maybe that's something that would potentially nerf it a little bit. But it's Cheetah is good, but like the Cheetah decks aren't super popular at the moment, other than Gambler Cheetah. Like Rebel Cheetah isn't really played that much. Cheetah Inventor, not played too much. It's more like sort of Gambler Inventor, or some other combinations. So no real changes to Cheetah. Maybe Cheetah actually needs a buff in some places, but yeah, nothing really changed there. No new cards, no balances. So probably Cheetah is pretty well balanced. In terms of what you might want to do with these decks, so the main things that I sort of can think of that I want to do with these decks is explore Bureaucrat Protector a lot more. Now, this has already been popular. Bureaucrat Protector became really popular with a lot of people, and this got pretty well used. Like, it became one of the more popular decks. Actually, I think it was the most popular deck for a long time, and this kind of gives it a bit more steam as well. Like with things like Savor the Moment becoming universal, I sort of built this deck to sort of test these cards. You can take a look, Bureaucrat Protector, and with these kind of things, with Thought Police getting the buff, with universal Savor the Moment becoming universal, there's quite a lot going on here that is going to be pretty interesting to try out. So I'm trying this out as a Bureaucrat Protector deck. I think there's definitely some legs there to to do some damage and kind of explore that a little bit. The other thing that I'm looking at is my Protector Inventor deck. Now this is because Protector had quite a lot of changes, and Inventor also had quite a lot of changes. We've got a new card, and we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. If we look at my deck, we've got a little bit of interesting stuff to think about with Protector Inventor. Like On the protector side, we got that new card again. But then with Inventor also, we've got the buff to chain reaction. Atomic Shift can come in handy, especially if you can pair that with some of these protector cards. And we've got sort of a whole bunch of other stuff that we can do. Split vision. So Atomic Shift is pretty good. Like if you're sort of going on using Fantasyland and Atomic Shift, giving yourselves sort of higher cards and sort of ranking up your cards. You can play also well with blackjack, and if you've got cards to use, that can come in handy. Split vision, also is pretty useful card that we might want to use if we got a pair. So if you're giving ourselves Fantasy Land, something like that, we can maybe use this split vision to draw 2 more action cards. So there's a lot going on there, and I'm gonna sort of experiment with this quite a bit and see where we might end up. Other possibilities, other things you might want to look at, which I haven't done yet, but I think is worth exploring, is the Rebel decks, especially Rebel Inventor, Rebel Protector. I'm not sure how far we're going to get with that. Like that's sort of combo that typically doesn't do well, but Rebel Inventor was one of the more sort of popular decks, and it's definitely had its time. So if we look at so the Rebel cards, there's definitely a lot of strong cards here. We've got things like Brick. Chip dumping is strong. Mulligan. Revolution, now being a universal card, is very powerful. Secret Stash is good. Things like Wash Ashore are great. Silver Bullet, super powerful. We've got Hostile Territory as well now, so we can counter a lot of those annoying sort of universal cards that we come against. And if we pair this with, say, Inventor, where we get these sort of cards that are good for manipulating the deck and sort of getting you into a good position, you can sort of start to see that this can be powerful, and we might want to think about this. We can maybe explore Rebel Protector a little bit. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can explore, and I've been exploring it myself, and I will sort of show some gameplay of some of the new decks I've been using. I've kind of killed and tanked my ELO, and I've sort of crashed out of the leaderboard by trying these new decks, and we've ended up sort of down to 14th place, but that's just how it is when you're trying new decks. You're gonna take a lot of hits, and that's fine. We can live with that. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that I can think to talk about in this update. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. People are trying out new decks. There's a lot of stuff to think about. So yeah, it'd be great to I'll show some gameplay soon, and I'd love to know what you think, how you think this changes the meta, and what you think about how you will incorporate some of these changes into your own decks. It'd be great to hear some of that from you guys. So that's all for now. That's all from me. Thanks for joining. Please share these videos. Let me know what you think, and subscribe, all that kind of stuff, depending on where you're watching this. But yeah, much love. And yeah, see you all again soon. Love you. Bye.
Welcome to Pandora, minion.
Well, just joking.